Hello, I'm Roberta.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Dave.
I'm Taj.
I'm Nancy.
And I'm Ray Haradin, and this is the story of our collection. I think I was born to collect. I started at a very young age, and I was following my parents around from flea market to flea market, and I just loved anything that I had never seen before. Caught my eye, and I thought was interesting. So I really started with a lot of different fields. Coins were one of my first. Toy soldiers were one of my very first two. Got into the toys and banks, but I also collected beer cans for a while, my mom's favorite. I collected baseball cards, really fishing lures. I really sort of collected a lot of different things. But it really wasn't until my parents in the late 60s stopped at an auction coming home from my dad was doing a residency at a hospital north of Pittsburgh. And there's a little town called Jeanette, PA. They were driving home and they saw a sign for auction today. There were a lot of cars. It was like a big event. Sort of auctions back then tended to be large events. And they decided to pull over and stop, take a look. And it turned out that this sale was a very important bank sale. It was the Adams sale. It sort of drew all the known bank collectors at the time there. And my parents were greenhorns. They just walked in and there were hundreds and hundreds of banks and decided to buy a couple of them. And I still, to this day, I remember we were staying at my grandmother's house and they came in. It was dark. They had a couple, beer cases in their hand. Like, what's that? And they pulled out these banks. There were 5 banks. And for some reason, they just were an amazement to me. I really enjoyed them. I remember my dad lined all 5 of them out. They were a Boy on Trapeze, a William Tell, an Artillery, a Tammany. I don't remember what the 5th one was. But he's like, Ray, you're the oldest. You can have 1 bank. And I picked the William Tell. My brother got another choice, and he had the Boy on Trapeze. And my parents kept the rest for themselves. And that really was the start of our collection. Again, I just sort of like following them around. Today kids, they travel all over to go to like volleyball games or basketball games. But when we were kids, I went with my parents to auctions in Ohio, and that's sort of what we did on the weekends. My brother, not so much, but he would go, and actually he went with us to one sale too. It was a Garth sale. Garth was an auction house in Ohio that at the time had a lot of toys and sort of things that we were interested in. They were one of the bigger houses. See, back then it was really different. You didn't have the internet to sort of bring everything to you. You had to go to it. And really, wherever you were, if you were a collector, in general, your collecting radius was a 2 to 3 hour drive from your hometown. That was your pool of goods. That's where you could find. There were papers, Antique Trader, which I bought one of my first banks from Norman Bowers. It was my first rare bank. It was an Oriental Camel. And I still remember that. But that was in Chicago. And that was sort of like really starting to reach outside of the realm of where I would normally get my banks to build our collection. But we were at this Garth sale. And again, back then there were hundreds of people at sales. So it was very crowded. And there was a number of toys there. My parents were very young and they were new. And that's where I ran into the Weiss twins. And that started a very long relationship with them, still in partnership with them. And I guess when I first met them, I was maybe 10, 11 years old. And Stephen loves telling the story of Mr. Weiss was talking to my father, and they're like, here are these young people here, and Lenore, Leon's mother, Stephen's mother, they're like, oh, Richard, let them buy a couple things. They're young, they'll like it. And Richard's like, okay. And, they were sort of established collectors. And next thing my dad's outbidding them. And Richard turns to Lenore, is like, what? You told me not to bid against them. And they were sort of upset about that. But it really turned into a great relationship, and something that I've enjoyed for 40 years. We've done a lot of business together, and a lot of collections, a lot of traveling. That's really what I love about the whole field of collecting. It's not so much the objects, it's really sort of the adventure, the discovery of new items, the people you meet, the places you go, the restaurants you eat at, just, the homes you visit. It's really more than actually the objects. As collectors always say, you buy a great piece, you buy it, you bring it home, you look at it, you put it on the shelf, you might not look at it for another 2 or 3 years. It's sort of like once you acquire it, that sort of adventure has been completed, you're on to the next one, you're on to the next thing. What are you going to get next? I've been lucky enough that I've really met and been friends with many of the major collectors and participants in the field. We started young, and just I never really stopped. Sort of in the 70s, the dominant shows were, there was Gaithersburg. It was actually a doll show, but they had a lot of toys. So I would go down there with my father and Dr. John Morphy. He's the father of Danny Morphy, who is very well known in the field. And we'd go down there twice a year and, try to buy 1 or 2 things. But that's where I sort of met probably my first real mentor in the field, was Bernie Ellinghaus. He, for some reason, liked me very much and took me under his wing and sort of got me into the Stillbank Club. And just, was someone that I could, like a lot of us, there are people that you can call when you have a question about a bank or something. They're always happy to talk to you and sort of let you know what they thought of it, what they thought you should do. But Bernie was a really great guy. And I also met there Frank Whitson, who's a real character. He really was a dominant figure in the world of toys back in the late 70s. And, really, I don't know if he taught me a lot, but he taught me a lot about what can happen in the world of antiques. He might not have been the most scrupulous dealer, but I always enjoyed his company. And then at that time, I also met some of the real influences for really when I got more into dealing full time. At Gaithersburg, I met Bill Bertoya and Donald Markey. And both those guys were very instrumental in sort of me becoming a dealer. The other source at that time were Lloyd Ralston auctions. So I know for a while that my father and I would go. Lloyd had auctions about 3 times a year, and they were real events. That sort of brought all the major collectors out, and that's where people sort of went to buy their toys at that time. That people would set up in the hotel rooms, and it was sort of the beginning of room trading. No one had really seen that, but people would bring whatever they had for sale, set up in their room. There was an auction that day, and it really became a big event. And that's sort of where I met the whole East Coast group of collectors. Aaron Schroeder was one of the main ones, Alex Acevedo, Al Davidson. They would attend those shows. And us being from Pittsburgh, people consider us Midwest, which we're really East Coast, but if you live in New York, we're the West. So it sort of broadened our horizons a lot to what was available in the collections out there. And those are very good times. And that sort of, we built what I call as our first collection. And that we have a small bookcase downstairs, and that's where really up through when I went to college, that was really our main collection. Very few of those banks still exist that we had there. We have the same example or same bank, but we've upgraded them several times. And it really wasn't until I got out of college and really it was Bill Bertoia, Donald Markey, and Alex Acevedo that sort of pushed the whole toy world to a whole new level. And they were the first to sort of introduce these mega sales. The first being the Perlman Toy Museum sale, which was held in 1987, I believe. And that was a museum, a three-story museum in downtown Philadelphia by Leon Perlman. And Bill and Alex sort of came up with a scheme, and they called it a tag sale. They only invited people. Well, there were three sales. For the first sale, you had to be invite only, and the commitment was you would spend $50,000, and they gave you a pen. They had a starter pistol. They shot it off, and everyone ran through the museum, and they basically picked the toys that they wanted. And that really was the first time that we sort of stepped up and sort of bought better toys, sort of try to improve our collection, buying better examples of toys. So it really sort of, that was a turning point for us, and the fact that there were better toys available, and generally to buy those better toys, it comes down to you just have to spend more money for them. We weren't comfortable doing that, and I think that's, no one really starts at the top. It takes years to develop, and you have to sort of, one of our themes was we would try to buy the best toy available that we could afford at any given sale. And there were a lot of toys that we couldn't afford, but we would sort of try to really focus on what was the best, what would sort of move the collection forward. And and this is sort of the result of it, is what we have here 40 years later. But the Perlman sales were really instrumental, and then right on the heels of that, they brokered the deal for the Hagerty collection, which was the best collection of mechanical banks. There are a lot of intricacies to that, but at the end of the day, the buyer, Al Davidson, couldn't really afford to keep the collection. He extended himself to buy it, and because of that, he had to disperse it. So we have a number of his banks, and because of that, Al Davidson at that time had the best bank collection, but he really had to sort of sell off some of the better parts of it to settle his debts, which he did, and that made those toys available to everyone. At the same time, there was the shows, so the antique shows really became quite the forefront of the whole toy market, and one of the biggest shows by far was the Atlantic City show, and we started Atlantic City the second year that it was in existence. I used to share a booth with John Morphy. We had a corner right by the stage, and I would go with my parents, and that really is when I sort of became a full-time dealer. My first year as full-time was 1987, 88. Was really the first time I sort of considered myself being a toy dealer as my occupation. And Atlantic City was a terrific run. Probably 15 years or so, really was sort of the hub of what collecting was. Everyone came, tens of thousands, 100,000 people. It was quite an event, and everyone that was anyone in the toy world, or any really dealing with any kind of antiques, that was where you needed to be 3 times a year. But like everything, that sort of ran its course, and another big shift sort of happened right around 9/11. It became difficult to travel with toys, especially internationally. It became difficult to travel with cash. People didn't want to travel as much, and there was a real shift there, along with the rise of the internet, and then for me personally, the fact that Christie's and Sotheby's decided to get out of the collectible field, which I still don't really know why, But that really was the opportunity for the Bertoyas and RSL, for the Morphys. That was really our opportunity to sort of fill that void. Because before that, Christie, Sotheby's, PB84, they really sold the bulk of the collectibles at auction. Ralston was an outlier, and Rick Offer, who's still around and very active and our current auctioneer, he has always been in the auctioning business, but the bulk went through the New York galleries. And with them sort of stepping back, it opened this whole door. And my father and I had an opportunity, another famous collection, the Bob McCumber collection. Bob was getting older, and he was interested in selling, and he approached my father and I and basically asked if we'd be interested in buying the collection. So I went up there and I took at the collection, and it was a beautiful collection, but a massive collection. And again, I've sort of always approached it more from the collector perspective. And in his collection, there was a large number of banks that we didn't really collect, meaning like tin banks, wood banks, just different types of banks that maybe weren't our focus. We've never really been interested in collecting everything. We were more interested in sort of buying the things that we thought were beautiful and we liked. That's what really drove us to build the collection. It's not that I have to have every bank or every color variation of the bank. It's just I sort of like certain forms and the look of them. And that's really what we strove to buy. And Bob's collection sort of would push that realm, and it was a considerable amount of money. And that then formed the basis of RSL auctions. I approached Leon, and I'm like, Leon, Bob's interested in selling. He's offered it to us. It's not really the collection for us to buy outright, but would you be interested in going in partners? And Leon was able to sort of negotiate a deal with Bob that worked out very beneficial to us, in that the collection was broken into thirds, and we had to purchase the first third. And so Leon and we just split the money, we bought the third, and we sold those banks. And because of doing that, then Bob extended us the ability to then auction the second 2/3 of the collection. And that was our first RSL auction in Connecticut, and that was very successful. And one collection led to another, and I can't believe that was 2003 or 2004, I believe. So 20 years later, we're still chugging along. So that brought me into the auction business, and that's sort of what I've continued to do, and I've been very happy doing it. So that's sort of the brief, I don't know how brief, but the story of how I got into collecting and how we built the collection. Sort of a small number of the people that I've known along the way that have really helped me out, and I've been a beneficiary of all their knowledge and education.
Ray, you have so many amazing pieces, but if there was a fire, what would you grab first?
All right, these are my 2 fire banks. People say, there was a fire, what would you grab? There's a lot of debate, but at the end of the day, these I think would be the 2 banks that I would grab. This is the Hagerty, Clown Columbine, and Harlequin Bank. One of the finest known, completely original. This again was purchased from Al Davidson. So Al bought the Hagerty collection, wasn't able to retain it. I was traveling to New York quite a bit, and I'd go out on a Sunday morning. He always liked Sunday morning. Go Sunday morning, and I'd have coffee with him in his office, and he had all his banks there. And it was just sort of, it was a time where you had to be at the right place at the right time. Some weekends he was very difficult. He wouldn't sell anything. Other weekends, he was much more generous and easy to deal with. So this is one of my better purchases. my wife Nancy just told me we were dating at the time. We were both staying in New York City, and she remembered I brought it home and set it on top of the TV at the Helmsley Palace. And I said, "Yes, look what I bought." She's like, "How much you pay for that?" But one of my favorite banks. Great action to it. Really terrific. Now this bank actually came from Bob Brady, and this is the Mosler Jonah pedestal. Both these banks are very rare. So Harlequins that are all original, there are probably fewer than 5 of them known. There's more that have been repaired. Jonah pedestals, I think there's only about 7 or 8 known. This, I believe, is sort of undisputed, the best known example of it. This beautiful color, great patina, again, all original, sort of, you know, what I think is one of the greatest banks ever made. Good design and everything. So this actually, I believe Bob Brady was this was Al Davison's bank at one time too. And Bobby was able to get it, and I was able to buy it from Bob at some point, probably around 1994 or 5 would be my guess. But yeah, these I think these are the two. If there's a fire, I'm grabbing them.
Ray, you've always been known to collect based on condition. What do you think some of your best condition banks are?
All right, we're sort of known as the condition generation. So the sort of my peers that I collected with, Larry Feld, Barry Seiden, Bob Brady, we were all sort of the notion that we liked all banks, but we really like banks that are the best ones known, or have 99% of the original paint on them, just as pristine as you can possibly get them. And we all really sort of pushed that market to strive to get those banks. So these are 2 great examples of sort of the best of the best. So this is the Stan Sachs Calamity. It actually, Stan bought it at the Perlman sale. It's by far the best one known, mainly because of this front figure right here. His face is essentially perfect. No other Calamity out there has a face like that if it's original. With the original box, it was well contested at the Saks auction, but we were lucky enough to buy that. And then this is considered one of the best conditioned banks known to exist. On the other end of the spectrum, it's by far one of the most common banks out there. You enter in Barn, there's a couple thousand of them known, but none of them look even close to this. This interestingly came up at a Christie's auction in London, and I distinctly remember having to get up at like 4 in the morning, which is like 9-10 o'clock their time, and bidding on the phone for this. And lucky enough, we were able to get it. Bought it just from the photograph, but when I got it home, I still remember unboxing the box and just looking at it in amazement. I was like, wow, I don't know, all our banks look like that. And that's the problem when you collect condition. You get better condition, all of a sudden the ones that are older don't look quite as good. So it's a real catch-22, but it's something that you have to endure if you want to build a great collection. All right, here we have 3 spectacular banks. These are all extremely rare. They're all the best known examples. All 3 of these are the best known examples of it. We really had to pay for it. This is the Steckbeck Germania Exchange. I've had about 4 or 5 Germania exchanges, but I always loved the Bailey banks that combined lead figures with cast iron. And just when the Steckbeck collection came up, we had a beautiful example, but this one sort of made it pale in comparison. So we had to go for it. So in reality, I believe this is the most expensive bank that we ever bought, including like the Jonah pedestal and the roller skating Harlequin. So great example. Just love the bank. I do like a beer every once in a while, so that sort of fits in perfectly. Another one of my favorites that you never really think you'd like this bank till you see this one. This is the Wally Tudor North Pole Bank. Perfect condition. This bank, interestingly, Donald Markey did a deal with it, and he never really said why or what or how, but he had it in Atlantic City, and it was not for sale, but he just had it there. And we saw it, and we liked it, but it wasn't for sale, and you know how Donald worked, if it wasn't for sale, it wasn't for sale. But I sort of kept reminding him about it for the next couple years, and yeah, finally was able to cut a deal and flew into Lidditz, PA, with a pocket full of money, and bought this bank from Donald. And it's one of my favorite banks. You know, it's never a bank that if you're looking, you know, like I used to always look at Griffith's book, you know, to sort of make your wish list, want list. And, you know, the North Pole is always up there in rarity. Yeah, it's something that, you know, I think every collector wanted, but it never really jumped out. But it really, when you see an original one in this kind of condition, it's really hard to resist. And then another one that, you know, this bank I think sometimes overlooked, but this is a Perfection Registering Bank, another Bailey bank that's just, you know, really finely detailed, beautiful casting, you know, with Wizard of Oz story behind it. This is the Haggerty example, near perfect, has the original box with it, only one known, has like a perfect label in the back here where it registers the money that comes in, no scraping. Usually that will be all scraped up, but just, you know, a wonderful, wonderful example of the bank. So 3 of my favorites, you know, and I think they're going to be 3 of the top lots. So keep your eyes open.
Ray, what are some of your other favorite banks?
Okay, these are 2 of my favorite banks, the Girl Skipping Rope and the Shoot to Shoot. You know, banks that I always really coveted and wanted to own. Girl Skipping Rope is a famous bank. It's the most intricate bank that was made by Janie Stevens. We've upgraded ours several times, but sad to say that there are some much better examples out there. This bank actually is from the Rodriguez collection, which RSL sold in right around 2007 or 2008. Before that, we had the Cometa example. Before that, we had another one from Donald Markey. So this is at least our 3rd upgrade. We have a beautiful figure, very nice cage, really nice color, and just great action. So I've always been thrilled to own this bank. Now this bank here is the Shoot to Shoot. This bank was actually from the Andrew Emerine collection. Got it through Al Davidson. You know, again, one of my favorite banks. It's one of the finest examples of this bank known. Nice action. The cart with Buster Brown and Tige starts up here. You push it, slides down, coin goes in, and then it catches this hook and he falls over and hits the table. So just 2 banks that I've always really enjoyed. I'm thrilled we have them in our collection, and you know, really enjoy them. Thank you.
I've always liked shepherd banks. Can you show me some examples?
Well, here we have 3 beautiful examples of Shepherd hardware banks. Shepherd Hardware produced in Buffalo, New York, and their banks are sort of characterized by sort of very rounded, smooth finishes, very bold lines. Not quite as detailed as the Stevens banks, but in their simplicity, they really produce a wonderful look. Everyone's favorite, or one of the most famous banks out there, is the Humpty Dumpty Bank. Produced fairly early, you know, 1890s. This is an exquisite example that was actually a fresh find out of New York. I got this through Leon and Stephen Weiss. Always look for a good one, and very, very difficult to get one with a very nice face like this. And then this bank is another famous bank here. This is the Circus Bank. This is actually the Myers example. So Mike Henry and Bob Pierce, they had the Henry Pierce auctions. This is mid-90s, and they were fortunate enough to get the Myers collection, and we purchased the Circus Bank there and the Clown Bar, and then a couple other little banks. But great example. all original, just really about as nice as you can get it. Shepherd banks are notoriously difficult to get in nice condition because they did not prime their banks, so the finished paint did not adhere to the cast iron as well as with some of the other manufacturers. And then this is another perennial favorite. That's the Mason Bank. Beautiful example. This one turned up at a Morphe auction, and actually Tom Sage bought it there. And then I was able to do a deal with Tom just a couple weeks later. Yeah, one of my favorite banks. All right, here we have two spectacular banks, the Dentist and the Milking Cow. These are made by Janie Stevens. They're part of the Pedestal series. Jonah Pedestal probably being the most coveted and desirable of them. This here is the Bob McCumber Dentist Bank. One of the two reasons why we purchased the collection. It's the best known example of the bank. It's really in exquisite condition. This far superior to any other ones known. Violent action in this bank, so it breaks off, and this is all original. And then again, the pedestals, they often break. So this is the Milking Cow. This actually was from a guy named George Seidman, who I used to do a lot of business with early on in my dealing years. And when he decided to sell, Bob Brady and I split his collection. And this was the one bank that we got out of the collection. And here we have three very bold banks, most people's favorites. Uncle Sam here in the middle, made by Shepherd Hardware. Everyone needs to have an Uncle Sam bank. It's one of the most popular. It's been highly reproduced. They use it in a lot of advertising. This one has very nice striping, very nice gold or silver stars on his vest. This exact example actually turned up sort of fresh, literally walked in off the street at a Frank Kidd Portland convention in the early 90s. And I was there and I bid on it a little bit, but Chris Jones at the time was buying a lot of banks, and Chris ended up buying the bank. And then about 3 or 4 years later, Chris was selling his collection, and I was able to get the bank from him then. So, one of my favorite banks. And then another one of my favorites is the Stump Speaker. This one I don't remember where it came from, but this real nice, clean example. It's not 99%, but it is really about as strong as you're going to get. Really nice colors to it, nice patina. And then we have Man with Child. This bank was always sort of an interesting bank for us because it comes in 5 color variations. And at one point we were trying to collect all 5, but we never were really color variant collectors. We were sort of more interested in just having an example of the bank than having 5 examples of the bank. So we got up to 4. I think we were missing 1 color. But this was red. I always go back and forth. We had a blue one that was from the Haggerty collection that I ended up selling. But this red one came from the Rodriguez collection, which probably was, if it came from Rodriguez, it most likely was from Mosler originally. And just wonderful example, nice bright colors. Here we have 2 nice Stevens banks, the Horse Race and the Boy Scout bank. Both very, very fine examples. This Boy Scout has nice copper flashing on the base here. Actually came from Bob Brady, 2008, 2009, in that period. And then this Horse Race, I've had a lot of horse races. This is a yellow straight base, just beautiful, beautiful yellow on this bank. Came from the Rodriguez collection, which most likely means it came from Ed Mosler. Perfect condition. Is missing the paper label on there, and you can get replacement paper labels, but one of the things that we sort of like things the way they are. So I don't really mind a little hairline crack here or there. a casting flaw. That's sort of, intrinsic to the bank, but I don't like when things have been restored. So, we'd much rather leave things the way they are. And this is an example of it. But really, for the yellow base, you can't really get a better example. Okay. All right, so if there was a fire, I would run in and I'd grab the Harlequin and the Jonah pedestal. But if I had a chance to run back in for a second group, these would probably be the next two. They're rare, they're very rare, but compared to some of the other ones, they aren't super rare. But they're two banks that are really very, very difficult to get in nice condition, and these are two of the best examples known. This here is the Bob McCumber roller skating. It was one of the primary reasons that we went in with Leon and Steven to buy the McCumber collection. Just the detailing, like the little yellow on the end of the roller skates and everything. You just never see that in any of these banks. The roller ring itself just being perfect. And then this is the Hagerty merry-go-round. Both these are Kaiser Rex banks. This was bought from Bob Brady. Just the best known example. If you can't really see, but in between the canopy here, there's silver highlightings on it. It's all original. And they both would be long shots, but for top bank in the whole collection, these two could be contenders. Either one of them has a potential to really sort of push to the next level. And here we have two wonderful banks: the confectionery bank and the Patronize the Blind Man. Both exquisite examples. This confectionery bank actually was from the Steckbeck collection. It was bought by Donald Markey, and he cleaned it. And I remember looking at it at the Steckbeck sale and liking it, but just sort of given the choices, or like, well, maybe something else. And then after Donald cleaned it, it's like, well, how did I miss that? But just great example, all original. Donald had it for a number of years. And, he believed it was one of the best confectionaries out there. Just a nice example of the bank. And then this, another bank that we've always liked but never really sort of had to have. But this was the best bank in the Rodriguez collection. And just when I saw it, I'm like, well, I don't think they're going to get any better than that. Just great lettering on it, great brickwork, and added it to the collection. Another two of my favorite banks, the Red Riding Hood and the Chinaman and Boat. Both the sort of diminutive banks, very slight in scale, but they pack a big punch. One of my favorites and everyone's favorite and extremely difficult to find is the Red Riding Hood bank. Comes in 3 color variations. This is the rarest of the 3, the yellow blanket. We actually got this bank a long time ago. I think it was the first really rare bank that we ever purchased. It came from Steve Steckbeck. And this was probably like 1988, 87, sort of in that range. And never been able to upgrade it. Never even seen one that upgraded it. So just thankful that we have it. And at the time, I guess Steve, he had 2, and he had this one and the one that was in his collection, quote unquote, and he gave us the choice, and we could have taken either one, and this was the one we picked. And then the Chinaman Boat, another one of our favorite banks. This one actually came from Griffith via Al Davison. Prior to this, we had the one we bought at the Perlman sale, at the tag sale. And then we were able to get this as an upgrade. And this one, I don't think can be upgraded. They do come with a painted boat, but this one is near perfect condition and just, very rare and desirable bank. Okay, here we have 2 nice military banks. the U.S. and Spain and the hold the fort 5-hole variation. The U.S. and Spain has its original box and original bullet. Got in a real bidding war with my business partners, Stephen Weiss, on this one at the Stan Sack sale. Best known example, it's the sanded base in perfect condition, and we thought we had it, bought it at I think $27,000, and then my auctioneer Rick Offer reopened it between me and Steven, and we ended up paying I think a little over $50,000 for it. So you win some, you lose some, but we won the bank of the day, so that was good. And then here we have the hold the fort 5-hole variation. Again, we never really did many variations, so I've had 7 holes, but to us it was just more important to have a great example of one of the banks and that kind of variation. It's nice, but I don't know. I'd still rather have the better condition. This actually came from Bob Brady, a beautiful red, white, and blue bank. All right, here we have 2 building banks. They're the last of our building banks, the Panorama and the Cupola. Both beautiful examples. The Panorama actually is from the Steckbeck collection. Probably our most upgraded bank. We've probably had 5 or 6 Panoramas. We've had green ones. We had a yellow one. Actually, our last one was a yellow. But this was the best one we ever had an opportunity to buy. So when it came up, we bought it. Just a terrific example. The paper label is really perfect. All the little details are really good on it. And then this is another one. We didn't know how good this bank was when I think we originally bought it. This was the Bill Norman Cupola Bank. And Norman, that was sort of the first opportunity for the general public to have an opportunity to buy banks. Really prior to that, everything was sort of done privately, through Steve Steckbeck or Donald Markey or Griffith or, any of the original sort of dealers. You had to know them and have a relationship with them to be offered anything. But the Bill Norman sale, which Bob Brady and Bill Bertoia orchestrated, that really was the first time the public had an opportunity to buy world-class banks. And we never had a cupola. I don't think we ever had a chance to buy any cupola, but we liked the look of this one, and we bought it at the sale. And as 35 years later, it's held up extremely well. It's way, way, way above average when it comes to what you usually see as a cupola out there. All right, here we have another contender for top bank. Probably, just looking back, my favorite of all banks. Always wanted a Mikado, and we were thrilled. Again, one of our first rare banks was the Mikado. Donald Markey, this is pre everything. He came by the house, and I think my mother made him dinner, and we all had a nice dinner, and he offered us the Chrysler Mikado, which was a red desk Mikado, and we had never been offered any kind of bank of that nature, and we bought it, and it was a beautiful example. We've upgraded it twice since then, but this is the Hagerty Mikado, and you really can't get any upgrade from this. This is a superior example of a bank that always sort of, to me, epitomized bank collecting. It's the extreme rarity. I like the subject matter. I like the form of it, and just one of my favorite banks. So again, if there was a fire, I might have to stick this under an arm. So there's 5 banks I'd be carrying.
Ray, I know what your favorite banks are, but what are your mom's favorite banks?
All right, here we have my mother's favorite bank, the Professor Pugfrog's Great Bicycle Feet. This bank was made by J&E Stevens. Great condition, a lot of moving parts in it. There can be a lot of problems with the bank. This example actually came from the George Seidman collection, which I mentioned before, and we've had it quite a long time. We've had a couple upgrades prior to this, but this was the one that ended up in the collection. And then this, one of the best example banks in the world, again, a near perfect example, sort of similar to the mule entering barn and the calamity that I showed earlier. This is the boy robbing bird's nest. This actually is the Cometto example with the original box. Perfect. It's perfect condition. So if you want a perfect bank, that's the one for you. All right, here we have two banks that I never thought I wanted until I saw these two exact banks. The Initiating First Degree, Goat, Frog, and Old Man. Great design too and everything, but you never see it in good condition. It never comes in good condition until this one came up at a Bertoia auction. And by far the best one I ever had an opportunity to buy. And we went ahead and bought it. Great bank. And then here we have an English bank. It's our only European bank in the whole collection. Again, never really had it on my wish list until I saw this one. This one actually came from the Rodriguez collection. It's near perfect condition. And just, again, another bank that you never even see them half this condition. So to get an opportunity to buy something like this, is very rare. All right, these are what we consider our downstairs banks. Buying to get upstairs, but that was sort of always one of our things when it came to buying, is we really would only like to buy things that would fit into that upstairs room we just covered, which is a high bar. It only holds 40 banks, and it's hard to make that cut. So these are just banks that we love, that we have, and again, always went better, but some of these are pretty darn nice. So starting, we have the Trick Dog, Shepherd, great example, nice barrel. And then down the lower shelf, we have the line of monkeys. That actually came from the Bob McCumber collection. And we have a Punch and Judy, large letter that turned up at a Chicago toy show. And then one of the nicest, we don't have any still banks, but the Santa with Tree still bank is by far the best one I have ever seen, and that came from my buddy Gary Senemy. And he turned it up and just beautiful cheeks on it, really, really, really good condition. Then we have a Trick Pony that came from Bob Brady. It's won a contest at one of the conventions for being the third best one known. But really hard to get it much better than that. Then on the next shelf we have a Hall and Stafford floor train. This train actually came from Min and Box. I think is the best floor train known. And in the center there we have a Springing Cat bank. This bank, I believe, came from Bernie Ellinghaus a long, long time ago, and just never been able to upgrade it. Beautiful example. Then we have the organ grinder bank on the lower shelf. One of the few Clockwork banks, beautiful condition. And then another one of our last two or three still banks is the Palace Bank in red. This is one of my favorite stories. I was down in Miami with my wife and Bill Bertoia and Donald Markey. There's a big antique show down there. There were a number of antique shows that we used to do in January down there. And this one is at the big convention centers. Again, several thousand people. And it's a general line show. So it was, Atlantic City was a general line show, but had heavy emphasis on toys. All the toy and bank people were set up at that show. Miami had some of them, but it was a harder show. It was a week-long show. So there's a lot of jewelry and sort of other things. But they got a lot of the dealers in the winter, the northern dealers would come down and they would set up at the show. So we would go and pick it. So Donald and Bill and I, we were outside the convention center waiting in line. And, it's a massive convention center. And we walk in and Bill always liked to take the lead. He's like, okay, I'm going right. And Donald's like, I'm going left. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go straight ahead. And I walk down the row, I make the turn, and I come around the first booth there. I'm like, hey, look at that repainted palace. And I'm like, hey, that's not repainted. And went up to a guy named Don Beck, who used to do a show in Pittsburgh too that I would buy things from. He had this bank. He said he just picked it up, and I was thrilled to buy it. So I bought it. I squirreled it away in a little bag, and sort of did the rest of the show. There was nothing. We get to the end, and Bill's empty-handed, Donald's empty-handed, and they're like, "What's in the bag?" And I pulled it out, and Donald was like, "Let me see that again." He couldn't believe it. So I had to buy dinner that night, and it turned into like a $700 dinner over 4 hours. But I guess it was worth it. Well, this is the toy that changed my life. So we always collected banks, but we liked all early toys. Really, as long as they were made out of some sort of metal, we liked them. So we were sort of naturally drawn to early American tin toys. And this, I think, is without the doubt what they refer to as the Mona Lisa of American tin toys. It's considered the best of its class, best of its form. Really, everything about it is considered the very best. It's the Charles Hose Reel, made by George Brown. It's pictured in his sketchbook. Only known example of it. Nothing even similar to it has ever been found. Sort of think that it probably was used as a store display, and it really just sort of epitomizes early American craftsmanship, form, and function. It is really considered the best. It was originally found by Frank Whitson in the late 60s, and he had a hard time selling it. Now, of course, he was asking a lot for it, but he ended up selling it to Barney Barinholtz, and it was in the Barinholtz collection until when they sold the collection, which I think was 1990. And I remember being there with my mother and father, and we were looking at everything for sale, and this was by far the highest priced toy at the time there. It was the highest priced toy ever, $125,000. But there were a lot of other toys in the Barinholtz collection that were sort of in like the 35, 45, 50,000. And I think we had, my dad said we had maybe about 125, 150,000 to spend. So we sort of were making a list, and it's like, well, we could buy like these 5 toys, or maybe these 6 toys, or there's that toy there. Now, Alex, who priced the toys, Alex Acevedo, he was never bashful. And again, 125,000 at the time was just sort of like a mind-boggling number for a toy. But sure enough, we decided the cap gun, they used the cap gun to start like a little foot race, literally. And you had to run about 20 feet to these big boards that had like pictures of the toys on it. Because again, sort of at that time, the toys were so desirable that some of these sales, they didn't even let you touch the toys prior. So you could look at it through a glass case, but you couldn't actually touch the toy. I ran up and put my name on this toy. So we bought the toy, and we just bought it because we liked it, and we figured we were going to keep it forever. And then Jeffrey Levitt, who started a company called Min and Box, he was trying to do this big push for for all types of toys, mainly European, but American too. And he was opening a big gallery on Madison Avenue. And my buddy Vern Chamberlain, he was the guy in charge of the gallery, putting it together. And Jeffrey got his sights on, wanted the very best. So he wanted this toy, and really at the time, I was a pure collector. I really, I sold a lot at the time, but I didn't really like the notion of sort of buying the best and then selling it the best to someone else. I'd rather keep it. But Jeffrey came in an offer of $250,000, which is like maybe 3 years after we bought it. And, it was just sort of, well, it's one of those deals that, you're foolish not to take. So we took the deal, and Jeffrey bought it and he touted his toys traveled all around the world. It's been to a lot of museums. And then Jeffrey's Endeavor sort of went bankrupt, and Christie's ended up selling the toy in New York, and we were able to buy it back for. We made a little bit of money. We bought it back for $231,000, and that sort of really put me as a dealer on the map, as someone that could buy and sell the very highest end of all types of toys and banks and everything. So we got it back, and then sort of at about the same time, Alex Acevedo had some toys left from the Bill Holland collection, and I'll show you those next. All right, here we have the companion piece to the Charles. It's only a hook and ladder that's known of that scale. It matches perfectly with it. Hook and ladder 186 is on the buckets that go with it. Now, this was Alex Acevedo's, and Alex used to do like this wish book, which I've sort of copied to some extent in my more recent years. And it was sort of the best of the best. So he would present sort of the best things that he bought during the year in this book that he would release around Christmas time, and he'd have a party with it and everything. And this toy, along with the next one I'm going to show you, were in that book. They were sort of, Alex was the dealer on Madison Avenue until Jeffrey Levitt came along, and Jeffrey ended up buying Alex's whole collection. But Alex retained these, and then after we bought the Charles back, we were able to do a deal with Alex to buy this hook and ladder. And I really think whoever buys the Charles, I mean, this piece really needs to go along with it. It's it's the companion piece to it, and just great American form. Here we have Louis Hertz's Defiance. Louis Hertz was the epitome of the toy collector in the 1950s and 60s, early 70s. He wrote a number of books. This being The Toy Collector, his first book, or his best book, I should say, not his first book. And he features the Defiance on the front cover. Toys highly coveted from all types of collectors, but great fire toy. The condition is incredible. Just, really, again, one of the finest American tin toys you can possibly get. Very lucky to have it. Okay, another one of the ultimate toys out there in American tin. We call this the Patriotic Hose Reel. This was another toy that came from Alex Acevedo. Beautiful form, beautiful condition. Besides the Charles, this is the number 2 hose reel in the world without a doubt. Just everything you want in the toy. Patriotic theme, just the tin work and everything just really puts together a beautiful, beautiful toy. So one of our favorites. We have a number of cast iron toys. Not a huge number, but we have a number. And this probably being the most desirable and best condition of all cast iron toys known. This is the Hubley Monkey Circus Cage. It was bought at the Don Kaufman sale. And rumor has it was actually the display model in the Hubley showroom. There are only 2 of them known, and the other one is in white and is very, very far lesser condition than this one. This one's near perfect. Just, another one of those toys. I always liked it, never thought I would get it, but when you see it, you have to have it. Here are 3 exquisite examples of toys. This is the Cutter Sleigh. Finest known example, with a little caveat. There's one from the Haggerty collection that has a dress figure in it. It's all Japan. This one is actually painted. All this, the rudders are all painted yellow with black highlights. Has all the scroll work on the side here and a beautiful red painted seat. We don't believe this one ever had a figure. This one came from Bill Bertoia, I believe from Don Fiore at an Allentown show. And Just, a great example of this American form. Beautiful toy. And here we have the Tom Anderson Circus Rider, mint in the box. Just great condition on it. Really can't get any better. Exquisite example of the toy. And then further down the mantle there, we have the Bob Stewart dog cart. We bought this at the Bob Stewart auction, and the companion piece to the cutter sleigh. We have some beautiful American tin toys with nice delicate form. Starting with the Miriam girl bell ringer drawn by a horse. It's an oversized toy in near perfect condition. This actually came from the Chuck Jenks collection. Highly contested toy, but just the form and the color and everything really makes it one of the best. We had a smaller version of this toy a number of years back, but once we got this toy, the other one didn't really pale and compare condition-wise to it. So that's where that is. And then next to that, we have the George Brown rocker, the Miriam rocker, made with a clockwork mechanism. It was made by Miriam, and this was actually from the David Pressling collection. Again, sort of similar to Hippodrome. There were none of these known, and then a couple of them turned up. There was one that turned up in Sweden. This one I'm not sure where it came from, but it, again, by far the best known example of this toy. I love the form, I love the action, the way the mechanism is concealed in the horse really makes it have a nice lifelike action when it is wound up. And then moving down, we have the large confectionery wagon. Not a very rare toy, but we just like this condition. We like the larger toys. The horses are 99%. There is some wear on the red, but compared to all their confectionery wagons out there, nothing really compares to it. And then the bottom is an interesting toy that came out of a Noel Barrett auction. This is the Hall and Stafford Gentleman Rider on Horse. It's a balancing toy, so it has a lot of nice action to it. We like the balancing toys. We have a couple of them, and this is by far the most intricate, the largest, and the best condition one we've ever had. Here we have three great American tin toys. Starting at the top, this is the Songbird Fire Pumper, clockwork by George Brown. By far the best known example. This one actually came from David Pressling. So I bought this along with the Pegasus and a rocking toy I'll show you in a little bit. But this really has the form of a great toy. It's sort of unusual, and I guess one of the reasons David probably bought it, in that it has much more detail than the typical American tin toy. So it's a little bit more in the line of the German toys that were produced at the time. And I think this was sort of a transitional period where I think Americans had the German toys to compare to, but they sort of quickly diverged into their own form. And I think this shows you part of that transition. Okay, then next shelf down, we have the Charles, undisputed best of the best. We've talked about him. But then on the bottom shelf, we have one of our favorite toys. It's the Hippodrome, which is one of our favorite toys. Another toy from the Louis Hertz collection. And we've had a couple Hippodromes. You never saw a Hippodrome ever. And a couple of them showed up in the early 90s, sort of in rapid succession. And there was one that showed up at the offer sale. A little bit before that, Lloyd Ralston had one at his sale. Then there was one that turned out of Boston. And then this one actually was Tom Sage's. And I was able to do a deal with Tom and get this toy from him. I like the form, like everything about it. Nice toy. Okay. All right, here we have three other really beautiful American tin toys. Starting at the top, the best condition groceries and provision wagon that we've ever had an opportunity to purchase. This one came from the Gary Smith collection. Just very simple form, but this with the condition and everything just is a toy that you really got to own once you see it in real life. Then moving down, just a beautiful omnibus. This is a Hall and Stafford omnibus, came out of a Skinner sale. Was a fresh find. And this is the large, they made, there were two omnibuses of this size that have this sort of detailing to it. This is the largest one and just a really wonderful condition. Got this probably around the year 2000, maybe 2001 or two. And then at the bottom, this is the Puritan. So this was Bill Holland's Puritan. Finest, riverboat of its kind. It came from Jeffrey Levitt. Actually, when Min & Box was going out of sale, we were able to put together a package and buy this boat. There were a number of other things, but one of the largest American tin river boats. There's some larger double-deckers, but for this form, it doesn't really get any better than that. All right, the Haradins are very, very well known for their bell toy collection. It was always sort of a collection that we just really enjoyed pursuing. They're generally much more affordable than the mechanical banks and even the American tin toys. But like all of the toys made sort of in the late 1800s, they're difficult to get in good condition. These are some of the finest examples. I think it's sort of undisputed. There are much bigger collections than ours, but we really do have the best collection of bell toys known. So starting in the upper left, that's the Columbus Egg. I believe that was from the Bob Stewart collection. Just a great example for the Columbia World Exposition. It has like a wooden egg in there that's always replaced. Very rarely do you see it. Next to the right of that, we have the Charity Swing. Now, the Charity Swing was one of Donald Markey's favorite toys. This one, I don't recall where we purchased it from, but one of the best examples of that toy. And then we have the Lady Liberty bell ringer. This example, by far the best. It came from a Noel Barrett auction. I was actually at my partner's 50th birthday party bidding on the phone for this. And it went for much more than I was expecting it to, but we ended up getting it. Okay, then next on the next shelf down, on the left side, we have the Boys Sawing Watermelon made by Hill Brass. Great toy, considered out of fashion at the time now, but it was always one of the most desirable of all the bell toys, and it's very, very difficult to get it in nice condition. And then we have the large poodle bell ringer. So there's a smaller version of this toy that has one bell. This is the larger one. This one, I believe, came from the Seidman or Seaman Sale. The Seaman Sale is the bank collection in New York City, and there's very, very few of these and very few in nice condition. And then to the right of that, we have, it's called Kick It. Only known example. It's more than exceedingly rare. It's the only one. This one, interestingly, I bought off of eBay in the very, very beginning. And it was so far in the beginning that cell phones, it was pre-cell phones having internet access. So I was going to, I think, a convention in Washington, D.C., and I had to make sure I got to the hotel. So I had an internet connection to bid on eBay at the time to buy this toy. And lucky enough, no one noticed it or saw it, or, this was back this is really back before people were looking at eBay. And it's by far the best thing that I've ever turned up on eBay. Okay, down again to the left. Okay, this toy is very unusual. It's the Fighting Roosters. Bought this from Donald Markey. Actually, I'm sorry. It's the Fighting Eagles. It's the Fighting Eagles. This toy, it's not really a bell toy. It's a pool toy. And Donald Markey bought it specifically for us, he said. Never seen anything like it. Don't have anything to compare it to. But just a really interesting form with these two eagles. Sort of they battle each other and has a very intricate mechanism underneath that allows it to work. Okay, then without the doubt, sort of the Charles of the Bell toys. The Punch and Judy. This came from the Perlman sale. and only one known. It's funny, it's the only one known, but there are some reproductions that they're similar, but not really even close to this. But it's funny that it was reproduced because I don't know where they would have got the pattern for it to actually sort of come up with the concept. But it was in the Perlman Museum for a long time, and it's sort of similar to the Charles, another sale handled by Alex Acevedo. He had a very large price on it. We paid $28,000 for it in 1988. It's a very, we love the form. We like Punch and Judy. We like everything about it. And it was sort of similar to the Charles story. It's like, well, we could buy these 5 or 6 things, or we could buy that. And we ended up buying that. And it's funny, Max Berry was sort of, my dad and him were sort of rivals when it came to collecting. And that was one, he always mentioned this toy whenever they spoke. That was the first thing they would talk about. Then to the right of that, we have the 2 Coons. Another one that might not be culturally correct at the moment, but one of my favorite toys, and just beautiful condition. And moving down to the lower left again, we have the clown bell ringers. This toy was actually one of the very first toys we purchased. This was at the Smith sale in Kansas City in probably late 1978, something like that. Again, another one of those Bailey toys, the lead clown on horse or on the donkey, and then a cast iron base. Beautiful condition. I've had 10, 20 of them since then, but none of them are even close to this one. And then, my favorite, I like the military aspect, but the Drummer Boy Bell toy. This was the Donald Markey example we bought at his sale after he died. Had a couple of these prior to this, but just, again, condition-wise, this is by far the finest. Then we have Uncle Sam and the Dawn, another very rare toy in beautiful condition, which I always liked. And then moving down, we have the Surf Boat, another Bailey toy, tin figures, painted tin figures, and then cast iron boat. Best one I've ever seen. And then to the next of it, we have the Swan Chariot. Always wanted this toy, great example of it. I don't recall who that came from at the moment. And finally, the Gator Baiter. So those are some of our better bell toys, but there's quite a few more. But that's sort of what we consider our best shelf of bell toys. So it has become time that everything must come to an end. So it's a time that we sell our collection and make it available to everyone. And hopefully everyone can find a couple great pieces to add to their collection. Buy the best thing you can afford, and I think you'll always be happy that you have them. Thank you.